So I'm seeing this story get a lot of traction, but hold your horses, everyone. Let's tone things down. Antifa plans terror campaign and siege of El Paso, Texas to push border resistance. A little bold there, Daily Caller, but they are getting the language a bit from Andy No, and a little bold there, Andy No. Let's calm down a little bit. Look, Antifa engages in what I would call terrorism, okay? It's how it's been defined for a while. It's threats, intimidation, violence for political ends. But let's just get one thing clear. Antifa is fairly low-level terror. It's still bad. It still should be condemned, called out, and stopped, okay? But it's not like we're going to see a wave of armed Antifa militias showing up and firing on border guards. There are Antifa militias. We did see what happened at the ICE facility in Washington. If you guys aren't familiar, guy showed up with weapons, right? So bad stuff happens. But let's not give Antifa, more credit than they deserve, I guess. They're not like an elite team of, extra-national assassins or anything like that. They're a bunch of young, dumb, privileged kids who put on masks and run around throwing milkshakes at people, for the most part. They do engage in violence. We've seen the instances of the bike lock basher. Now, as much as I want to make sure we can downplay the more, we got to calm down on this one. We do. I do want to stress there was a report from law enforcement that Antifa was planning trainings in Mexico, firearms, etc., to help disrupt the border. And now we're hearing there's going to be a story time tour followed by a 10-day protest disruption event. I'm not going to call it a siege like, Andy No did. If that's the way he sees it, fine. I disagree. And I think we got to be careful about holding up signs screeching, "The end is nigh." Listen, Antifa is annoying. They're dangerous. They hurt people. Call it all out. But when you go around holding up, signs saying "The end is nigh," far lefts are planning a terror campaign siege on the border, people are going to be like, get out of here. Let's approach it slowly and carefully and explain. For the most part, Antifa, frail, weak, skinny, urban, far left. They're not, their power comes in their numbers, and they are escalating. So it is something that we should be concerned about, but let's read a little bit. The Daily Caller says the far-left Antifa movement is reportedly planning a terror campaign and siege of El Paso, Texas, in an attempt to raise awareness of alleged abuses at the U.S.-Mexico border. Please, let's not call it a terror campaign and a siege of El Paso. Antifa does not have that kind of capabilities, okay? They throw milkshakes at people. While it is, okay, I'm maybe downplaying a little bit too much. They've bashed people over there with bike locks. They've whacked people with batons and crowbars. I get it. We recently had to get the ICE facility. But to act like we're at this point yet, little too fast. The so-called border resistance exercise involves a militancy training tour that will converge on a 10-day siege in El Paso, Texas, according to a tweet from Andy No. I believe that is fairly hyperbolic as to what's actually being promoted. The promotional image shows border enforcement officers being killed and government property firebombed. Organizers are asking for white comrades to pay for others. So let's jump over to Andy's tweet. And look, I'm no fan of these guys, right? But Andy says Antifa is leading a border resistance militancy training tour that will converge on a 10-day siege in El Paso, Texas. The promotional image shows border enforcement officers being killed and government property firebombed. Organizers asking for white comrades to pay for others. Now, this is disconcerting because of what just happened in Tacoma. They're saying border resistance tour, stories and firsthand accounts of the last year of autonomous organizing on the border. You can go to borderresistance.com for more info. And we can see there's the gate being torn down, although they make it look like it's made of wood when it's actually made of a metal of some sort. And then we can see Antifa symbols. Oh, here's my favorite. Look at the bottom. Can you see that? There's somebody with a peace sign on their back throwing a Molotov cocktail. Wait, hold on. I want to stress this. They have a peace sign on their back, and they are throwing a Molotov cocktail. In fact, it looks like they're throwing several Molotov cocktails. And then we can see arrows and the American flag burning, and there's a huge fire. And there's a Border Patrol vehicle being destroyed, and they all have bows and arrows for some reason. Oh, and there is a dead ICE agent with arrows in their head. Now, it's for those that are listening on the podcast, it is a crude bit of art. If look, I don't know the full details. It may be a militancy training. What I imagine is going to happen is you're going to get a bunch of far lefties, and they're going to go around reading books and telling stories. This will exacerbate the extremism problem, and this is going to be followed up by this: the call to action. Fighting off a sneeze. Sorry. September 1st to 10th, El Paso, Texas. Border resistance convergence. Abolish ICE. Shut it down. I don't think we're going to see John Brown Gun Club and Redneck Revolt showing up and firing on agents in a siege. You know, like, here's the thing, man. When you call it a siege, it's silly. It's going to be a bunch of activists holding signs for the most part. There will be black bloc attacks. There will be violence, but Antifa violence is frequent but low level. I don't think we're at the point where we're going to see a bunch of armed dudes show up and get into a battle with Border Patrol. It's not going to happen. So I get it. You want to be hyperbolic? Sure, fine. But we also have this right here. John Cardillo posts, domestic terror group Antifa is organizing to threaten the Border Patrol and ICE. You can donate to them on a credit card via Square. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, who silences conservatives but not Antifa, is also the founder and CEO of Square. I believe this is the one I want to highlight now. Listen, let's call Antifa, point out the story. You can call whatever you want, fine. I'm just one who's like, here's the point I'm trying to get to. Look at this story from Newsweek. Trump wants to declare Antifa a terrorist organization, even though right-wing extremists have been more violent. What? What the hell does that have to do with it? It's a non sequitur. These people are insane, okay? They are running defense and supporting Antifa, and they play this game to do it. Antifa and right-wing extremists are both bad. Right-wing extremists tend to be more effective, lethal, like their plans, they carry them out, and it's extremely dangerous and worrisome. Yes, it should be condemned. Here's the thing. They're already called terrorists. They're already listed as terrorists. Antifa, they're trying to get to be classified as domestic terrorists so that there can be more resources for investigating them. Just because one thing is bad, or just because something is worse than Antifa, doesn't mean Antifa isn't bad. And this is the point. We are not talking about Antifa being this like powerful resistance movement. It's a bunch of losers with frail little weak arms who are terrible at what they do. Even their doxing campaigns are weak. And I mean that, okay? I've been in the hacker community for a long time. You want to talk about doxing? They're not that good at it. They just have a collective. So sometimes they can pull some things off. They can throw milkshakes at people. They can bash people over the head. But they're not particularly good at what they do. They are not effective. And I don't mean effective in a good way. You look at what happens with the right-wing extremists. They show up, they know how to use guns, and they're dangerous. And that's why we need law enforcement to track them and shut them down. Look at what happened at the ICE facility. Guy shows up, immediately dies. He torched one car. They're getting more dangerous. That's why it's important to call it out. But when I look at stories like this, it's the most frustrating thing to me. Listen, Antifa is increasing their tactics, their rhetoric. Sean King is escalating his rhetoric. It's getting dangerous. Call it out. Let's not go too far too quick, though. At the same time, what the ever-living F is this? Trump wants to declare Antifa a terror organization, even though other people are terrorists too. Okay, so you're saying like, I don't know, ISIS? Are you saying something about like, Trump wants to declare right-wing extremists? Here we go, let's play a game. Newsweek wants to declare right-wing extremists terror organizations, even though ISIS is more violent. What the hell does that have to do with anything? They're both bad. Listen, when you have a group of people going around attacking people, encouraging it, and holding meetings to do so, it is a problem. When Sean King, with 1 million followers, tells people to do it and then says it's a good thing, that is a problem. So yes, call it out. The rhetoric's a little silly, but it's kind of ridiculous to me that, well, I'm not going to get into this story. It's ridiculous to me that people think simply because other people are more violent, Antifa is somehow okay. And that's how you know everyone's lost their goddamn minds. And obviously not the conservatives, they point this out all the time. Why is it so easy for the Republicans to condemn Steve King, but Democrats can't condemn Ilhan Omar? It's very obvious. We know when the right has gone too far. Whatever right actually means, I don't know, it's confusing. But we have these distinct like ideas, or not I don't want to say distinct, the vague ideas of left and right. Great, we know. Someone said something bad, condemn it. The conservatives do it all day, the left doesn't. Trump causes a tweet storm. I didn't want to pull this one up. I wanted to pull this story up. The point is, Trump says he wants to label Antifa terrorists. Newsweek is arguing against it. Have you guys done a Google search? It was 2017 when confidential documents called Antifa domestic terrorists. We're there. It's been done already. Okay, so anyway, long story short, let me wrap this up. We are going to see some major actions coming up. On August 17th, Joe Biggs and the Proud Boys and a bunch of other groups are going to be in Portland. A bunch of other far-left groups are going to be there too, and there's serious concerns over the potential for extreme violence. There's going to be armed factions on both sides. We're now hearing about what's going on with the Border Resistance Tour and the call to action, but calling it a militancy training tour, is that fair? Maybe? I mean, I didn't go to the website, so I'll take his word for it. Because militancy training is something common we do see with Antifa. But to call it a siege on the border, hold on, you know. So let's just see what the Daily Caller ends with. It's not a very long article. They say, despite the group's use of intimidation and violence, Antifa enjoys some level of support among certain progressives and even portrayed positively by some media and Joe Biden. They say that, yeah, for example, former Vice President Joe Biden launched his presidential campaign praising Antifa. CNN host Chris Cuomo suggested that they fight for a good cause and shouldn't be judged like other political factions that try to circumvent the democratic process through raucous protest. They're not good people. They're bad people. They're doing terrifying things, and we should call it out. But we want to make sure we avoid the more extreme rhetoric that you see the left using, calling everyone on the right, you know, a Nazi or some other nonsense. Don't call it a siege. Let it happen. I don't mean let them do it. I mean, show up, be vigilant, do your thing, whatever it is. I'm referring to law enforcement. If they escalate tensions, call it out when they do and have that proof to say it. But when you come out and say there's going to be a siege on the border, and then a bunch of 20-something pale, frail, scrawny little urban people are holding up signs and squeaking like morons, you're gonna look ridiculous. You know, so we'll call it out when it happens. When Antifa does something, call it out. Don't overestimate their abilities. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment will be coming up at 4 p.m. YouTube.com/Timcast, and I will see you all there.